Chance Campbell, the Ole Miss linebacker, kind enough to join us as he always does on Monday afternoons. Chance's visit with us at MPW Digital and RippleGrove.com is brought to you by The Rogue. The Rogue, 4450 I-55 North in Jackson. It's the place to go to get all of your kind of college-themed gear. They've got the pullover like the one Chance has on. A lot of stuff from Peter Millar, different brands. A lot of fantastic stuff. So whatever you're looking for, get in touch with the people at The Rogue. It's therogue.com, or again, 4450 I-55 North in Jackson. Chance, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. You decided to come to the SEC because you wanted to see Wacky, and my God, you got something crazy on Saturday night. You got your wish. What was that like from your perspective? We'll dive into it a little bit more, but just kind of your overall thoughts on the atmosphere and the event that was Ole Miss at Tennessee.
Yeah, that was nuts. I know. Like headed into the week, some guys like we talked about. Like Coach Kevin does a good job of like kind of letting us know what the situation is going to be before we step into it. And I guess he had in that situation even more experience having coached there. But I didn't realize at first like how big the stadium was until they talked about it. Because I knew like probably a little Big Ten prejudice, but I always thought like all the big stadiums are in the Big Ten, but like 102,000 is a big place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like kind of got your mind wrapped around that, and then they talked about how loud it was going to be. But I think you kind of had to be there and hear it to kind of get that one.
So I was going to ask you, did you sense in warm-ups that it was different? I mean, I've talked to people who were up there. They said, hey, it was obvious on Friday night that there was a little different, there's a little different feel in the air, that this was going to be one of those games that people would remember for a long time in terms of atmosphere. Could you tell when you walked out on the field to kind of get loose and stuff that this is different?
I don't know. I kind of like I tried pretty hard before game to stay pretty neutral. So I try not to let too much of that stuff get to me. I never try to ignore it because I think whenever you try to ignore it, then it kind of slams you and you're not ready for it. So like when I went out for warm-ups, like I saw it was a big stadium, that there are a lot of people there early. So like whenever there are people there early, like from my short experience in the SEC, it means there's probably going to be more coming. So like I knew it was going to be like a lot of people there, and obviously they talked about it being like a sellout, but I don't think I had like any like crazy preemptive vision that it was going to be like what it ended up being.
People talk about how loud it is when the opposing offense is on the field. You're as you and I have talked about, you're out on the field when their offense is on the field, so they're trying to cooperate with their guys because obviously they're wanting to score on you. When you were on the sideline, though, when you guys had the ball, could you I know you're trying to communicate, you're trying to, get a water and all that stuff, but could you feel noise? I've heard people say the noise was almost tangible. It was like a wall of noise that kind of squeezed in a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of like that, the feeling the noise part, because I think it's like everything's so loud it kind of gets lost, but like when it gets like crazy loud, like when like people have that like crazy loud that they try to describe, I think feeling it is a good way to do it, because that is kind of what happens. And when we were like making corrections, you don't really hear it, so we're on the bench, but like when I did notice it was on third down, they actually had like a decibel count. And I remember like two thoughts. Like one of them was being like when our offense was backed up on a third down early in the game, I was like, man, that must be tough to hear. So like my first thought was like, oh, it'd be tough to hear out there. But then like throughout the game, and it probably isn't the right way to go about it, but they had the decibel count. And I was like thinking, I wonder if it could get to like 110. I wonder if we get to one, which is not what we wanted. Helpful, but I was like kind of nerding out over that because I thought that was pretty cool. But I was like, wait, no, we don't want that. Let's not have that.
What was the biggest number you saw?
I think 108 was the biggest number I saw. But because I remember
loud, man.
Like Penn State, Michigan, that whiteout when they called it timeout, I think they said that was it. I think they said that was either 110 or 112. So I was like waiting for it to get to 110 and trying to say, but yeah, probably not the right way to go about that.
It was also appeared to be a super physical football game. I mean, both sides, as it, people talked about the over under was 80 something, and it was going to go over. It got nowhere close to over. Both defenses played pretty well. It looked like as that game went on, it got physical.
Yeah, no, it was for sure. I think that's kind of like what you want. You know, it's like feels good when you leave a game, and I don't know. Sometimes I feel like when you play a football game, it's like the nature of games. Some of them are different, but when you leave one, and it was kind of like at least for me from a linebacker perspective. But when it's like kind of out on the perimeter, deep shots, like sometimes you're like, man, like didn't really feel like I played a football game. Like maybe it feels like 7-on-7, but that one like felt like a football game. Like during it and then after, you're like, yeah, I played an SEC ball game.
Um, take me through from your perspective that last minute with starting with the stop. I think their fan base thought that because his right hand got across the line to gain, that he had a first down. I don't think they realized, maybe because how big the stadium was, angles, bias, prejudice, whatever, that the ball didn't get there. Did you? What was from your perspective? Did you think they had converted, or did you think you guys had stopped them? And then what was those moments like when everything starts raining down on you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was short. It was obviously a lot closer than we would have liked it to have been. Um, but I thought it was short. And then when they like reviewed it, I was like, whoa, like what's going on here? Because that always, I don't know, that always makes you nervous when they pull out a review. It's like, are you seeing something I'm not? Like, because I saw the ball in his left, like outstretched, empty right hand. Um, but like, yeah, that one's like kind of like hold your breath for a second. You're like, yeah, we made it a lot closer than we should have and than we wanted to, but like, still think we got it done. But now you're saying maybe not, so that gets a little freaky.
Stuff starts flying out of the stands. I mean, golf balls and water bottles, and you guys have to get out on the field. What's that? What was that like?
Yeah, I've never experienced anything like that. I remember joking with one of our coaches, and he's like, I was like, "This is what you meant when you said the SEC is a little bit different." He's like, "Not quite, but yeah." Um, I mean, that wasn't anything I think anybody expected. I think they expected a crazy atmosphere. I think that was probably a little more than they had bargained for, but it was wild. I didn't even know that that was a thing that you did. Like I didn't know you like left the sideline, but some of those dudes had cannons. Like they were launching some stuff, and it got pretty close. And it wasn't coming from like the front row. Like it wasn't like dudes you could ID. Like I mean, they had the lights on. Like, it was a beautiful stadium. So like it's like obviously like most stadiums is like real well lit, but you could see like water bottles flying from like the mid deck, and you're just like, no way it gets there. And you kind of watch it carry, and it like hits the bench, and you're like, oh no. Like it like I don't know. It was. I mean, obviously
I'm
that's not a
sorry for
look that.
laughing. Just the way you're describing it's funny. I apologize.
No, but that's kind of how it was. Like, and it was. I don't really get it from the fan base. Just from the perspective of it, like, there's a minute left, 3 timeouts. Like, there's still like ball to play. So I mean, I was like, it just kind of like made you pause and like laugh almost. You're like, no way is happening right
Yeah, and then they ultimately get the ball back. I mean, you guys had to wait 20 something minutes.
now.
Did you kind of, I mean, for lack of a better word, get cold? I mean, you're used to a football. You and I've talked about this. You're used to a routine, right? I mean, you
Mhm.
show up to the stadium a couple hours early. You go out on the field. You warm up. You go back in. You come out. You play a half. You go in. You have halftime. You come back in and play. I mean, I'm not breaking any news to you, but at no part
Yeah.
in that is, hey, let's stand around for 25 minutes with 54 seconds left on the clock, and then we go play again.
Yeah. I think probably I can't really speak like offensively, but I know defensively, um, it's one of those things. It's like when something like that happens, it makes it's like would be a normal signal that a game is over. Like if a fan base kind of goes to that, it's like all right, the game's over. But like it wasn't though. So it was like really it was this weird middle ground of like, yeah, all these crazy things are happening, signaling that like a game would be over, but it definitely isn't. Like there's still a good shot, and it ended up happening that we have to go back on the field. So like I think guys in the first couple minutes, at least like for me, I probably got caught up in it a little bit too, just like kind of laughing at it and like feeling good about yourself. And you're like, wait, like there's still like we still got work to do. So like anytime that you have something like that introduced that's not part of the schedule that you talk about, like you gotta kind of have to like ID it, recognize it, and be like, all right, well, now we gotta address it.
So, I don't even know how to ask this because it's such a weird thing, but the TV cameras caught one of the Tennessee coaches telling one of the linemen coming off the field with an injury or whatnot to get down. In the fourth quarter, the fans were booing every time one of you guys was on the field. Tennessee had guys that were on the field. I know you're probably not going to be completely honest with me here, but when people accuse defenses of faking injuries to slow tempo down, are they completely off base, or is some of that stuff kind of happening out there?
I mean, I don't think people like understand what it's like playing in a tempo situation like that. So like I was actually talking to one of the buddies on the team about this, talking to Spring about this a little bit, but like when you have a hit or a play, even if it's not a hit, but you have a play, like when it finishes, there's kind of like that self-diagnosis of like, all right, like I kind of threw my body in there, but yeah, I'm all right. When you go tempo, you don't really get to do that. Like you kind of just throw it in and then go to pop up. So like sometimes when that's happening, like things are going super fast. There's like stuff that happens like between plays where you normally have 30 seconds where you're like, all right, yeah, I dinged up my hand. Yeah, it hurts a little bit. All right, it's gonna go away. It's done. But like when you're going tempo, it's like I dinged up my hand. I don't know if I'm ready to play the next play. And the way the rules are set now, like you're hurting your team if you're not ready to play the next play and you either try to run off the field. And that was like hard for me because like in high school and when you're little, it's like, don't stay on the field, like get off. Well, like now you're playing with 10 and like that's an issue. And if you're not ready to play the next play because you got dinged up or it's just a medical thing, like then you're basically playing with 10 anyways, and that's still not good for the team. So it's like I think people see that more in tempo just because of like what I kind of described. So I think that's probably where some of that like confusion comes from.
That makes a lot of sense. I hadn't even thought about it that way. Obviously, you went down a couple of times. I know you weren't in there on the last couple of plays. I think you physically, you okay?
Yeah, no, I'm good. The last couple of plays we have like it's our victory package. It's like our end of game. I think you see a lot of teams see it. So we just put guys to go rush the passer and they did that. And then we got guys to cover and we did that too. So yeah, that was like a situational thing, but I'm all good.
So you guys 5-1 at the turn. You're 5-1 through half of the season, heading into the second half. LSU comes to your place. Their coach just announced that he won't be the coach next year. All that stuff. Huge game, expecting a massive crowd. Lane Kiffin earlier Monday kind of called out the Ole Miss fans. He's like, "Hey, we haven't really had an atmosphere like the ones that we just encountered at Tennessee, the one that you encountered at Alabama." Obviously, you were on the visiting teams in Tuscaloosa, Knoxville, but what does an atmosphere like that do for the home team when you have it on your side?
Yeah, I think it again, like probably best off speaking from like a defensive perspective. So like when I've had that in the past and it hasn't been like crazy frequently, but when you have a stadium that's super loud and you're on defense, so it's like for a third down, a lot of that communication that needs to happen on offense is like gets really tricky. And it's it doesn't have to shake the whole team and everyone. Sometimes people think it has to shake the quarterback and make things difficult for him, but even if it's a receiver, say you're like you have student section that is crazy loud and that receiver is having a tough time hearing and takes his eye off the ball, jumps around. So you get a false start or doesn't get the right check because he's distracted, runs the wrong route, then you break on a ball, interceptions, like small stuff. And it's just like I don't know how. I think what do we see, like 60 something thousand?
Yeah, 64 I think is when it's full.
Yeah, so 64, like that's take a good number, like assume 3/4 of it Ole Miss guys like cheering. So we have whatever number that is, a lot of thousand to one guy. So like that's kind of how I try to think about it. It's like fans can like make a really big difference because you really like there's a lot of you guys and you only have to affect one person. So like that's huge. And then there's defense just for energy. I think a lot of guys like get into that. It takes a lot to get the third down. Like you got to earn first and second. So you earn first down, you earn second down. Now you get a shot to go get off the field, and you get like crowd behind you. Like that's a fun thing to do.
You mentioned Jake Springer. He returned for this game. Seems to just to me, and I look the next time I coordinate a defense will be the first time, but it looks like that he really makes a difference for you guys. I mean, he's a physical guy in the back end. It looks like he kind of helps bring some confidence to you guys. Not that you weren't confident without him, but I think you know what I mean. How valuable is he to your defense?
No, he's a fantastic player, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for him for a lot of reasons. But the one being the way that you pointed out is he plays hard, and I love watching guys play hard. And I think he's not super vocal, but like everybody knows when he's on the field, which I think is a really cool thing. And I think says a lot about him both as a person and as a player. So he brings like a lot of attitude to the team, and attitude in the sense of the way that he plays the game. So having him is huge, and it's fun playing next to a guy like that.
What time did you guys get back in the other night? Like 4 a.m, something like that?
Yeah, real late.
Is it?
Yeah, we got.
I mean, I know it's almost like a hangover feeling the next day. How long does it kind of take to? All right, here we go back into the routine. Is it when you're used to, not used to traveling at 4 a.m. on a bus?
Yeah, I really didn't probably shake. I don't sleep well after games. But I don't like sleep. I don't sleep great before the game, and I don't sleep well after. And so I was up. I think I got back to my apartment like a little after 4 probably. That's after we got the hour back from traveling. Um, and then I think I ate breakfast before I went to bed. I think I ate like a bowl of cereal and then took like a nap and then ended up going to the facility, watching tape, getting treatment. But it really wasn't until like I took a nap later that day for like an hour and a half. I was like, all right, yeah, I guess now you're rested. Now it's back on to regular schedule.
You've heard about Vaught Hemingway when it's full and crazy and all that stuff. We talked about this last week. They're retiring Eli Manning's number. There's going to be a ton of people there. It looks like the weather's going to be absolutely perfect. What are your kind of? I mean, you've played some Ole Miss home games. The Arkansas game is probably the closest to it, like CBS big time game at home, all that stuff. Is this kind of something you've caught yourself really looking forward to?
Yeah, I think it's funny because, and this isn't like a step down on anywhere that I've been, but like the game day atmosphere at Ole Miss has been like very different than what I'm accustomed to. So like even though they haven't been what a lot of people would refer to as like great show ups for our fan base necessarily, like still really cool to me. Like I had never seen anything like the Grove. I remember the first time I saw the Grove, people were like, wait till an SEC game. I was like, I think this is pretty crazy right now. Like I don't know. And then for the Arkansas game, some people were like, man, I wish we sold out. I was like, there are a lot of people in the stands. Like I thought it was a lot of people. So I don't know, like for me, if I noticed much of a difference between like a packed sellout crowd and what I think was like a decent showing. But I think it is kind of maybe like that last little bit that's like that when you look back on it, you're like, oh, probably yeah, now I recognize it. So I think like I'm just excited for this next game, but I'm sure all that stuff will follow.
Family coming down?
Yeah, so I'm excited. It's actually my dad's birthday weekend. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, I get to see him for his birthday day. So I'll be able to see him on his birthday, which is really neat.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tell him I said hello and happy birthday. And best of luck to you this weekend, to your team. And really appreciate you spending some time with us again this Monday.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Chancellor.